ultime settimane ci sono state enormi e spontanee manifestazioni di solidarietà verso i profughi. Qual è il ruolo della stampa in questa situazione e se è paragonabile all'Italia?
I think there has been a shift in the debate globally and quite a dramatic change, and certainly the photo of the small Syrian boy, Alan Kurdi, who drowned on the beach in Turkey, an image that was disseminated all around the world, has had a huge, quite a profound impact on the way the discussion around asylum seekers is being conducted all over the world, and certainly the debate in Australia was significantly affected in solidarity with refugees, and I suppose public opinion leading governments to say we need to do something about this. And so you then saw the Australian government, which previously had been very hostile to any increases in refugee intake and had prosecuted very hardline policies, announced that it would take in an extra 12,000 Syrian refugees. So there was an impact quite immediately on a policy level. I think more broadly, the reason that picture was so influential was that it humanised what had been an increasingly dehumanised debate. So governments had used language that was very impersonal about asylum seekers. You know, it talked about swarms and waves of people coming. In Australia, asylum seekers aren't referred to by their name when they're in detention, they're referred to by their boat number, so they're dehumanised to that extent. And so the asylum seeker issue was portrayed as an issue of a large, amorphous, undifferentiated mass of people coming. I think the picture of Alan Kurdi made people realise and confronted people with the reality that these are people, these are individual families with hopes and dreams and all of those things. It personalised it and it humanised it, and so the entire nature of the debate, I think, was profoundly changed by that image. Whether there is a long-term change brought about by that image and this change in discourse remains to be seen. That empathy might last only for a very short time, and then people go back to their lives, and the discourse continues as it had previously. But certainly we have seen a change caused by that. I think the media has a huge responsibility in the way the asylum seeker issue is presented, because often with asylum seekers the story is out there somewhere. People are on boats, or they're in detention centres, or they're in camps somewhere. They're far away, and so often in the asylum seeker debate, the voice that is not present is the voice of the asylum seekers themselves. They don't get to prosecute their own case. They don't get to explain why they've come and who they are and where they've come from. So they are defined by the words and the language that others use about them. So I think governments need to be hugely careful in the way that they talk about asylum seekers, and I think there is a responsibility on journalists to consider the language that they're using, and if they're using words like illegals in English or clandestini in Italian, I think that's very damaging, because these words send signals about who these people are. These people are illegal, these people are illegitimate. So I think there is a responsibility for journalists not just to report factually and accurately, but also with some awareness and some sensitivity about the power of the words and the constructions that they use.
E pensi che nel momento in cui un giornalista, una testata di giornale mette in una determinata posizione due determinati articoli, lo fa per fare un determinato effetto sul lettore, e lo fa, o solamente un giornalista, diciamo un occhio abituato a queste cose, se ne accorge?
I think the impact is quite deliberate, and I think it's quite widespread. I think the idea of putting a picture of the political story about the discussion between nations about quotas and these things next to the story about a migrant who is involved in a criminal act, I think that's a deliberate juxtaposition, and I think it is a subtle but very powerful, very effective message to say these people are dangerous, these people are a threat to us. Now, should newspapers be reporting about a murder? Absolutely. Is his background relevant? Absolutely. But the juxtaposition of that, I think, is quite intentional and quite dangerous, and has an impact not just on people who analyse journalism and look at newspapers, but on readers, almost subconsciously, in a subterranean way, to sort of just quietly suggest this is a dangerous man, these are dangerous people. This absolutely should be reported. It's a very serious case and an important story to write about, but to kind of subtly suggest that all migrants are dangerous. You know, there are criminals within the refugee cohort, absolutely, but there are criminals within the native populations of countries. So I think you just need to be very careful, and newspapers need to be very careful in the way that they portray these things next to each other, because it does carry a message.
Cosa pensi del lavoro che Occhio e Media fa, ovvero la segnalazione degli articoli, e cosa ci consigli?
Look, I think journalism is often known as the fourth estate in democracies, or the watchdog on governments. But I think what's often needed is a watchdog on the watchdogs. You know, who's watching the media and keeping the media honest, I suppose, and accountable. And we have similar institutions in Australia. We have a TV show called Media Watch, which is almost the same name, that looks at the way the media is reporting issues and writing about lots of things. And I think it's a very valuable tool in any democracy. The media has enormous influence and enormous power, but with that, I would argue, in a democracy comes an enormous responsibility to use that power responsibly. And that's not to suggest that all media have to agree with my point of view on things, or with the Guardian's point of view on things, but the media needs to wield its power sensibly and carefully. And I think for groups like yours and TV shows in Australia like Media Watch are an incredibly valuable part of the media discussion.